Stay with us. At least two persons have been confirmed dead in Lagos after a seven-story building collapsed in Oniru area of the state. The building, said to be under construction, caved in yesterday morning. Although the immediate cause of the collapse is still sketchy, emergency workers and security operatives have already moved to the site to possibly rescue the trapped victims.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State government has ordered the arrest of the developer and all the building professionals working on the collapsed seven-story building in the Victoria Island area of Lagos State. The order came from the Lagos State Commissioner for Fiscal Planning and Urban Development, Dr. Idris Salako, during his visit to the site on Sunday. According to the Commissioner, the developer and all the professionals violated the state's planning laws. Our correspondent, Bernard Akedi, joins us now for more updates. Good morning, Bernard, and thank you for joining us. You were at the site of the collapse yesterday. Tell us what you saw.
Well, it's not anything far from the different kind of collapses that we've seen, sadly, in the space of about 10 months, since last year, October, up until now, where we saw the building collapse in Ikoyi. That was about 17 stories. And then the one on, that was on Gerard Road in Ikoyi, the one on Abeokuta Street, Lagos Island, and then this one as well. Now, there are complaints of using probably substandard materials, and then there are complaints, disparities about things that have been going on in and around these buildings. Now, the one in Ikoyi, like we were told, if you remember, they said that, the building had been cordoned off and the government had ordered that further construction be stopped. The one on Abeokuta Road on Lagos Island, clearly that one had been marked, and the occupants had been asked to evacuate that building because it was looking unsafe. Now, this particular one as well, the spokesperson for the National Emergency Management Agency has said that this building had already been marked and that construction work had been ordered to stop since last year, February, if I'm not mistaken. But from what we heard and from what eyewitnesses around had told us, that construction work still continued in this particular building. Now, from eyewitnesses as well, we heard that it was the penthouse that came crashing down first at about 3 a.m. Sunday morning, which probably gave some people the chance to evacuate the building. Sadly, some of these uncompleted buildings have people who live in them. So as the penthouse came crashing down, it's possible that that was some sort of alarm for people in and around the building to evacuate before the whole thing came crumbling down like a pack of cards. And sadly, there were 2 fatalities. Now, one major issue and big question everybody's asking is, if the government eventually seals, or when the government seals buildings and structures like these ones that we've seen, how come after some time construction work still continues and then nobody does anything about it? There was a gentleman who I spoke to who showed me the tweets that he tweeted some 4 days ago or 3 days before the collapse of this ill-fated building. And he said he tweeted and even said appropriate authorities should do something about it. He put pictures of the building. From those tweets, you could tell, without even being a construction worker, that this building was clearly unsafe. Sadly, people have to lose their lives before measures are taken. We do hope that, as the government has said this time, that the developer or developers, as the case may be, and the workers in that building will be brought to book. We are clearly tired of seeing lives being lost because of things that could clearly have been avoided.
Well, I understand, a lot of people are, would be moving towards punitive measures for the developers and for whoever it is that erred, that led to the collapse of this building. The Lagos State building agencies and whatnot would also be questioned. But there's a part that, I feel like we do not pay a lot of attention to. And this happened, and I mentioned this when the Ikoyi building collapse happened earlier in the year, I believe. I don't think we spend enough time talking about rescue efforts and improving on the quality of rescue efforts that we have. I don't know if those 2 lives could have been saved, in any way, after the building collapsed yesterday. But do you see any improvement at all with the time with which rescue gets to the people who need them?
Okay, so concerning this particular building, I would say there was an improvement with the time that rescue efforts did arrive. Before we got there, at about 8:30 a.m. Before we got there, they were already on ground. Workers of the National Emergency Management Agency, that's NEMA, the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, were also there. We had medical support as well on the ground, security operatives, all there. Now, let's not forget, this is not me playing devil's advocate for the appropriate agencies, but we all know how Lagos is. Usually on a day like Sunday, it was quick and easy for these rescue workers to get there. But when it's a working day, like the one that happened in Ikoyi the other time, I remember it was a working day and it was towards the close of day. It is very, very difficult sadly because of the terrain that we live in, it's difficult for security operatives, for rescue workers to get on that side. So most likely what you have are the first responders. And first responders usually are volunteers, maybe volunteers of the Nigerian Red Cross, volunteers, people who live or who work or who are just passers-by, who try to get there and see what best they can do. It's usually a challenge for people to get in there. Again, let's not also rule out the fact that sometimes you have passers-by, onlookers who just stand there and disrupt the activities. Sometimes security operatives have to use force to clear the area, to create a perimeter for people to actually go in there and do their work. So yes, you do have a point. But I think from yesterday, what I saw, I would like to give some kudos to rescue workers, first responders who came in there to do what they could do. It's really challenging, again, because of the terrain that, that Lagos is, as it were, right now. We would like to see, of course, there's always room for improvement. We would like to see more speedy response. We would like to see more efficient equipment, when it comes to rescuing people who are trapped under the rubble of collapsed buildings and structures like these ones. But for yesterday, I would give them some kudos.
I mean, it's quite unfortunate to see the level of disregard that people have, especially in the built sector. I mean, you've mentioned that this building had been marked, had been sealed off, and had been, everyone could visibly see that it was heading for a collapse. There were reports as to the number of people that died and they were trapped in the building. In some cases, we heard 2 people were rescued, and 2 bodies were rescued, and that 6 people were trapped in the building. Can you confirm to us, whilst you were there, how many bodies were evacuated and if there were more trapped bodies?
Yes, as at the time we arrived, we were told by both the NEMA and the LASEMA bosses that 6 occupants were said to have been in the building. Early in the morning, 2 people were pulled out. Sadly, they lost their lives. And so we're expecting that maybe some other 4 people would be brought out alive, or worst case scenario, their bodies will be recovered. But as at yesterday evening, when excavation work continued and got to ground zero, which is in the base of the collapsed building, there were no further bodies that were brought out from that rubble. Then again, it brought me back to what the NEMA spokesperson said. That's Ibrahim Farinloye. He said it's possible that there may have been more people, or that there may have not been any other person in that building. Again, remember that this was a building that was under construction, so there was no manifest, there was no list of persons in that building. What you have more often than not in buildings like these is the construction workers who are working there passing the night in such buildings. But more often than not, over the weekend, we hear that they tend to go to their houses or go to wherever it is that they come from. And then late Sunday evening or early Monday morning, they reconverge and continue their construction work. Again, because the penthouse, from what we were told, because the penthouse first came crashing down, it could have been some kind of alarm signal for those who were there to evacuate the building before it eventually collapsed upon itself, sadly. Now, so clearly from that, we were not certain. There's no certainty as to how many people exactly were in the buildings at the time. But 2 bodies clearly were pulled out, 2 dead bodies were pulled out, and after that we haven't had any report of anyone else that was pulled out, either dead or alive, from the ill-fated building.
Well, we hope, the necessary steps are taken. If not, if there's no improvement in processes and punitive measures and whatnot, then we're very likely going to report another, one of these, very soon. And, we hope against it and we pray against it, but, the government needs to do what must be done. Thank you very much, Bernard, for, of course, the work that you did. We'll be speaking with you again, I guess.
Thank you for having me.